jungle.
Hi and welcome to DestroyerAlive number 68.
68.
Yeah,
Wow, that's many episodes.
Yeah, and it's our second in row in English.
Yep.
Yes, and as last time we have a special guest, Roger Bernard again.
Yeah, great guy.
Great guy, a lot of cool stories. And this time we are going to focus just on Sean Delaney.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that.
A real fascinating story. And Magnus had to leave us in the middle of the show, so when you see we're suddenly just three people, that's the natural cause.
Yeah.
So, okay, Roger Bernard and all about Sean Delaney.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start then. First, we should really make some kind of disclaimer, really, because we're going to talk about Sean Delaney, and both me and Roger, anyway. I'm not so sure about the two other guys here, but we're really fascinated by Sean.
I'm fascinated, but I'm not sure if I know that much about him.
No.
But
the disclaimer is really because Sean isn't with us anymore.
Yeah.
So whatever we say it would be difficult for him to talk back anyway. But we're fans, and I'm a big Sean Delaney fan, and this is what I'm telling is actually what I feel things are like. And Roger, you could probably say a little bit about what your thoughts about that.
Of course. I mean, the fact that I was a friend of his, I'll be able to communicate what I think, and the personal relationship and how he reacts when he answers the questions, and how dramatic he is.
And not many people met him, so you knew him, so that's very unique. I mean,
I got very fortunate to meet at very, very early Sean Delaney, and then because I became friend with the very first person who joined KISS, which was Sean, and the second one, which was Moose.
Yeah.
And this is great that I have like a friendship going on like that, and I don't take advantage as far as like try to find out too much from them. I just want to be friend with them. But Sean had this urge of communicate everything he knew. So, and you know how you felt. You wanted to vent what he knew about this.
Yeah. But also, it could be that I'm wrong, but it's like I just reread Hellbox, and the same with you have this fantastic document that your friend Stan and you made.
Yes.
And
yes.
In one way, it could be that I'm wrong, but I think probably, even if it's positive in one way, I think both those are kind of documents that are probably more negative. Paints him in a more negative picture than he probably was before that, in one way.
Maybe. The thing about everything that I have, like I said, it was very, very early. You can tell the difference between when we spoke with him versus 2000, when he was doing some interviews with people. I can see very well that before he starts answering, sometime he kind of thinks a little bit, and he's used to answer those questions. So now he's saying those answers in a different ways versus when we did it, Stan and I, it was like coming out boom, 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 like he was giving it to you straight up.
Yeah, but I also feel it like the document you sent me is more straightforward than Hellbox is. Hellbox is like. Then again, it's probably a lot more edited. I think there's a lot of stuff taken out of this book.
I think so.
It could be, but I haven't spoken to Brian Kincaid, so I really don't know. But it's a very thin book, but it's a nice book. I think it's not that good when it comes to the Kiss years, but him growing up and when he was in the army and before he met Bill O'Coin, it's really interesting.
Wow. I don't have the book. I kind of wish I had it now.
Yeah, but
not me either.
We're going to concentrate mostly on the Kiss years, but because it's like the early years is more about when he's growing up and he has problems in identifying himself with being gay and going into the army and stuff like that. And it wasn't easy being gay at that time he grew up. So
no, that was not out. Exactly.
So
exactly.
It feels like in one way that the first time he really became happy when he met Bill O'Coin, really, because he was in a violent and abusive relationship before that, and he actually ended up in hospital. So Bill the guy who he was with almost killed him. So Bill he moved straight into Bill's apartment, and he more or less saved him. He saved his life.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means that when Kiss started, Bill and Sean were already together.
Yeah. They had been together for a couple of years.
Okay.
So he even knew Neil Bogart before Kiss.
Yeah, he knew a lot of people. He was totally connected. This is the kind of guy he knows everybody. He's connected. He knows all the bands, and he was definitely aware of his surrounding for sure.
So the way he knew Neil Bogart was that he tried to audition to get a record deal with Neil Bogart, and Neil Bogart just turned him down.
Wow.
So afterwards, he went past his office a lot of times and just for days just went inside and told him what he thought of him. And he did that for days and days and days and days. And one day he just went past his office. I'm not really sure how he went past his office, if he went inside a building or it was just outside or anything. But when he just passed, Neil Bogart came running after him, and I did say Neil Bogart all the time now, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
Neil Bogart.
Neil Bogart came running after him and wondering why he didn't come into the office to shout anything at him. And after that they became friendly.
Wow. So does that kind of remind you a little bit how he's connected with Kiss, just for that? Because Kiss was very tenacious at the very beginning by sending invitations to all the promoters and producers, and they kept, particularly Gene, is the one who kept, working on that. And there you go. You kind of get the same nature that you find in Sean Delaney by doing that.
They never gave up.
No, this is the thing. And there's a quote in that first interview that we have that relate very, very much into that, how, because he fell in love, he connected with Gene Simmons because of what Gene did at that particular session at Le Tang, when he goes in with the clap at the hands. And that's when Sean said, okay, that's when I connected with that guy. He said, I'm in, not because of Paul, not because of Ace, or not because of Peter. It was Gene who did it.
He actually, Sean was actually quite negative in the first place when Bill told them that he was going to see them.
Yes,
but that's because Sean has been fighting so many years to get his own bands together.
Exactly, and that's what I like about the particular interview. That interview, instead of just giving you the facts, he tells you how he felt before, all the surrounding, how, because he was pissed off when he went. When he asked him to go, he got to Le Tang, and he did not want to be there because his band got dissolved because he was supposed to sign in at Columbia Record with Clive Davis, and Clive Davis got fired, so the deal was off. Yeah. So Bill calls him and says, okay, I got this band, I'd like you to come and check out. And then Sean Delaney ended up in that very small room, which was Lotang. And he was pissed off. So he was on the side of the stage, not in front, but on the side, and he was watching him. And everybody knows the whole story, but for whoever doesn't know, is that they came out on stage and it was very, very loud. Sean doesn't think that it was very good, but it was very loud. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that song, there was a dead silence. And he looked at Neil. Neil did not look interested at all. And Bill, not too committed.
No.
And then Gene went down to the little platform that was about 8 inches platform. He went down and he grabbed both Neil's arms and he made them clap. And Sean went, "That's it. I'm in. I want to go and take care of those guys." Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was like, wow. So you get another perspective of all the stories you hear about that particular day, because there was like about 12 or 13 people present in that room. And you get like side of the stories of different people. And there you go. Now we got Sean's story. And he was very important because he's the one who got involved after that. So I think that was pretty a very good story.
But that tells you a lot about his impression of Gene, because the first he saw them together with Bill O'Coin at the Hotel Diplomat also, but he didn't stay for the whole concert. It didn't impress him so much that he bothered to stay for the whole concert. So but then again, I think he came on a little. He was kind of pissed off because Bill O'Coin didn't want to do the same for him that he was willing to do for Kiss, really. And he just did the promotion packet they sent in the first place. He just thought it was bullshit because he knew that most of the stuff that were in the promotion packet weren't real. They were just bragging.
He thought it was bogus. Yeah, he thought it was just made up. Yeah, the very last interview that we watched, actually, he talks about that.
Yeah.
But see, now it's when you ask when was, me and Stan, to make a little story on how we got all this information here. In the last podcast, I talked briefly about it, but just to recap, if somebody did not see the last one, Stanley Goad, I showed the picture last time, but I'm going to show it again. This is a Kiss fan, regular Kiss fan, but with a very small, skinny guy with a big heart. That's how I like to describe him. I was in a comic book store, and I saw him buying a Kiss comic books, and I said, "Are you a Kiss fan?" He said, "Yes," and we exchanged phone numbers, and we started communicating, and he came to my place, I went to his place, and we kind of show our collections, and a few months later, he gave me a call, and it says, "Do you know Sean Delaney?" And I said, "Yes, I heard the name before." And the only two places that I was familiar as far as knowing Sean Delaney's name was the interview that I watched that I listened to in 1974. Alison Steele, she talks about Sean, and not she, but Gene Simmons says that when his hair caught fire, Sean Delaney jumped on him to save his life. By the way, when I became friend with Sean and I had his phone number, I listened to that interview again after I met him, and because I forgot about that particular part, and I called him at home and I said, "Sean, I just listened to the Alison Steele interview, and actually Gene is saying in 1974 that your name, Sean Delaney, jumped on me to save my life with his jacket to extinguish my hair." And he was like so thrilled. He said, "Are you serious? He's saying my name?" I said, "Yes, he is. And he really mentioned you." So he was extremely, he said, "I want a copy of that." He was extremely very proud of the fact that, see, at that point, he wanted to have recognition of what he did for the past.
And what year was this?
That was in 1994.
Okay.
Because I met him in between 92 and 93. That's when I saw him for the very first time. The only way I knew Sean Delaney, so okay, you all know this magazine, of course.
Yeah.
So in the back, there's a picture of Sean with his cowboy hat. You see him there? Do you see it well?
Yeah.
Oh, there is. Okay, I never thought about
that's
it.
Sean Delaney. That's the only pictures I ever saw of Sean Delaney before I met him. And so the day that I went to meet him...
Was it John Buscema underneath?
Let me see. I believe it might be. Yes, it is.
Oh.
Good eye.
Yeah.
Good eye. Yeah.
My Conan hero.
See? Very good. And so when you see Sean mentioned that, like, see the guy in that book, like the play hard, play fair,
Yeah.
the guy with the ponytail. That's pretty much how he looked like when I met him, because he was not as skinny as the last videos when he was very sick. He was definitely, maybe I'm gonna say maybe 30 to 40 pounds heavier than this particular video.
Yeah.
He was, and he was in very good spirit, and it was right after the Kiss story came out.
Yeah.
The Kiss story came out, and he wants to release a book. That's what he wants to do, because now he saw some information in there, and he wants to go and say he wants the world to know that what really happened, because he claims that in the past he was always asked to don't say this, don't say that, and we don't want the people to know that you orchestrated all the choreography, things like that. So
because that's the sad thing. He never got the credit for what he did.
Not that much, yeah. A few times they mention his name, but not very much.
No.
But just when we're on the topic we were before we digressed a little here, there's a quote in the paper she sent me when it's so. He had a band just before Hotel Diplomat. The band you were talking about, I think that was Manhole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
the quote is, "The band broke up. I was disappointed, filled with hate, and suddenly my friend Bill is talking about someone else. I am pissed."
Yeah. See, that's just before he went there.
That's before Hotel Diplomat.
Right there, by reading that, you can almost imagine him on the side of the stage with both arms crossed, probably looking at that band and say, "Okay, now what am I going to see?" That's, yeah.
There's also from Latang a really great. I was looking at Neil. Neil was being nonplussed or by the thing. Bill was sitting there not being committal anyway. And then suddenly the gene thing happened, and then he turned on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, and it's fun. The thing that I love pretty much to go. There's another quote also. Let me see. Can we go to this one? He's talking about the attitude of the band.
Yeah.
And no, you guys, just so the crowd knows. This particular interview that we have on paper here, there's a tape that exists of that, because the morning that we did the interview, this is the very, very first one when we met Sean for the very first time. So there's a tape on this. This is the transcript. Then later on, he was looking at my books. I taped that. I have a cassette, but this is like all the real stuff. And let me see. I have a real link with people that actually are doing the opposite they wish.
Yeah.
And then he goes, when you realize that these guys were really willing to take all the steps and do all of it, even though they sometimes were fighting and screaming. They were still dressed, walking down the hall. They were still willing to go. And the moment they walked through that door, boom, they were ready. And it wasn't just one time, it was always.
Yeah.
So that says right there, the band, they were there to make it. So that was pretty cool.
There's also an incredible, it's like Sean is often described as the fifth kiss. And
yes.
I've also heard about both Bill O'Coin and I think somebody maybe said it about Neil Bogart, but there's one reason here that I think Sean should be called the fifth kiss, because he said, "I had this mission in my head that these guys wouldn't get fucked over by Bill O'Coin, Neil Bogart, by a promoter or any producer."
Exactly. Even though he was a friend with Bill, he went for Kiss.
Yeah, it's like and other places he describes other people outside the band, like managers and promoters and people from the record company and producers. All are parasites and leeches.
See, you know, I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
circle that part too.
yeah,
I was planning on reading that, and it's true. That's what he says. He said that, you know, but we do need those guys that are parasite. You do need them. You need the
yeah,
managers.
yeah,
You
yeah,
need
yeah.
road crews, and but you know, there's a point also when he talks about the road crew too, which is very. Why did I put that? This is it. If I connected. Yeah, even though you release plastic, need. There we go. This is where he talks about that. So he goes, I think we connected because we had no fear. They had no fear. Everyone else around us had fear. So there was only him and Kiss that were willing to do the crazy stuff. Everybody else were scared because if we didn't do it, they, meaning O'Quine and Bogart, would not have jobs. If we didn't do it right, they couldn't make money. So we had the actual people doing it. And then he goes, and everybody else, I hate to say it, are parasites.
Mm.
Even though they are needed, it is a parasite. And then he goes, but it is needed. You need a manager, you need a road crew, you need all this stuff. But it's the core. If the core of it, which is the band, is not there, they all will go somewhere else to hook onto another core. And there's always a separation. I don't think the guys in the band ever knew how the road crew would hook on and die for them. So this is a big quote right there. He's really saying that, you know, the road crew were willing to take a bullet for them. They were really there. Road crew were like a band gangs. And then he goes, this was their life, and this is what they're proud of. And they would fight for them. Anyway, I was one of those people, except I crossed the line into creativity. I could also play guitar. I could play instruments. So when someone would say, nah, you can't do that, I would grab the guitar and do it. So you see that line that Sean is talking that he crossed. So that's how he became pretty much like the fifth member, that's how Sean is looking at it. That, you know, you got the road crew, but he was involved in helping them about the choreography and telling them. He knew the whole show. He does some area like that he talked that he could close his eyes, and if they were performing, he knew if there was something wrong happening. There we go. That's a good picture with Bill. And this is Janet in the middle, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But he also has a quote here that really tells a lot about why Kiss made it anyway, and probably I feel in one way when he got to know him, it probably was a lot of the glue that held them together also, because it's like, this is really a great quote. If the guys in Kiss had been weak-minded, nothing would have gotten done. We never had, hey guys, let's do this. Gee, Sean, okay. No, these were battles. They were ongoing. We would discuss things until everybody agreed. There were no compromise. I think that's what made it so good. There were no compromise.
And you can only imagine. Put yourself into the shoes of Sean Delaney. You got a band playing in front of you, and you're gonna go and say, "Excuse me, guys. I think if you do it like this, it would be better." Well, how do you think the band's gonna react? Of course, they're gonna come back and say, "Mind your own business," or no. And that's when, you know, Sean talked for the very first time. He said, "Okay, you guys think that you're doing it right, right?" They said, "Yes." So that's when he started videotaping them, and then he said, "Do it your way," and now we're going to do it my way. And then they both watched the tape, and he said, yeah, you're right, you know what. But he's very specific in there, and that's one thing that I like, is that when he wants them to be the unison, you know, all those moves together, he doesn't want it to be like an escapade move, like a show that they all do everything together at all time. It would be once in a while they get together and do it, and after that they go on their own. And that was the key of making it work, because otherwise it's too much of a rehearsed play. So
Yeah.
that was
Do we know if Sean was into the makeup from day one, or because Neil Bogart wasn't? I mean, he didn't like the idea of the makeup in the beginning, but
no, Sean was definitely for it because he actually.
Yeah.
And Bill, particularly Bill, of course,
Yeah.
because Neil wanted them to remove the makeup,
Yeah.
and then
yeah,
Bill would just basically ask them, and they said no, absolutely not. And I'm sure, I mean, actually, Sean was the one helping them to improve that makeup. He was the one going to that store
Yeah.
to buy that makeup. And
Yeah.
Anyway, we have it on that tape here that we can play you later. And but it's like, wow.
Yeah, the Stein's clone white and stuff, and he also went to the pleasure chest and got them.
Right. Well, you know,
them
Sean,
leather
exactly, because
clothes.
Sean had all those connection with those stores because they were for all kind of, well, we don't want to go in detail, but all kind of the porn movies and gay crowd, and he was getting outfit from those stores, and that's how he started getting outfit for Paul.
I was
the guys.
so sorry for interrupting. I was actually at Pleasure Chest about 10 years ago. So it's
Okay.
10 years ago. The store was still in New York, so
See?
I went there and took some photos and stuff like that.
So
Nice.
you're fully equipped then, no?
He came back with a trunk full of stuff.
yeah.
But it's like he even I'm not sure where I wrote this. He bought the belt for Paul like a corset because he was much more chubby than.
Well, that's what he said. That tape that I have, I mean, he stuck at the very beginning. He said Gene was fat, Paul was fat, they were ugly, and he's really not like, he's going it like straight on. I mean, he's not painting the picture as far as to make it nice.
Yeah, but he's
pretty-
also saying that he himself was ugly, so it's like everybody was ugly.
Pretty much. Just like, wow.
But
he's,
it was also in that period the first thought that they didn't go that they were supposed to go for black and gold in the beginning, not black and silver. But they had had problems with all the gold stuff because that changes color in the lightning.
oh, really? I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. You learn every day on Kiss World, all the time.
That's
There's
for
so much
sure.
information. I mean, obviously, this podcast is definitely for the geeks of Kiss, right there. Because
No,
this is,
no.
in it-
I'm not a geek.
no.
This-
I'm talking, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't know who Sean Delaney is. I mean, there was a time for a very long time I have no clue who Sean Delaney is.
This is
And then-
stuff everybody should know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but I know this is why actually. Was there any podcast in the past that were done only on Sean? I mean, I don't. There's so many podcasts out there. There might be one. I don't know, but I never
think
saw one.
three sides have spoken to Megan McCracken, and she spoke a lot of Bill and Sean, and they spoke to Sean's nephew, and
Oh, yeah.
Sean's brother, and
Okay. But well, anyway, so we'll try
But,
to.
I don't
Hopefully,
think,
we'll be able to try
it-
to reveal things that no
it-
one heard before.
Yeah, but it's not as nerdy as this.
In 2015, there was a Kiss Expo in Sweden, and Moose was a guest, and he had a lot of good things to say about Sean, and that was
Okay.
really
Bruce,
interesting.
JR, you mean?
Oh, sorry, JR. I mean JR.
JR.
And,
Okay.
he was a lot of. He had a lot of great stories about Sean. He said, that they were rehearsing, and Sean was very sort of critical about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when he didn't like something, he just stopped, and he said, "Just stop! No, don't do that like this. Do like that." He was very the choreograph guy in the band, and he really was focusing on small things, small details. And for example, JR said that the way Paul talked on stage, he told Paul to you have to behave on stage between the songs like a rock star,
Yeah.
So That's what, how you doing? All that stuff was actually Sean's idea, and JR said that he could still hear things Paul is saying today, that it was actually the work of Sean, and he thought that was really, really interesting,
But they also, what I think was very good for Kiss is they had a couple of months with Sean, because Neil Bogart were like holding them back, because when he agreed to sign them, he was still working for Buddha Records, so he had to get out of his contract before he could start Casablanca. So there's a time span there, so they had time to rehearse with Sean and get the show really tight and together.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of weird, because it's one thing to add to that is that period of time when Neil asked him to lay low, to go hide somewhere. They really went to hide, because that's when they went to Sean Delaney's rehearsal studio. And when he describes that, this is what I like about Sean. He adds you so many detail to it, that to go to the studio, it was on Church Street in New York. He was in the basement under a factory. So the sound is not going to be a problem right there. But to enter that studio, it was those, when sometimes you see in cartoon, those elevator that comes up from the sidewalk and you get the 2-panel opening, and then that elevator comes up and you go in and then it comes down. That's how you would enter in that place. But what surprised me even more is that when they went in there, Sean was already there with his band. So the equipment was there, and then Kiss brought the equipment as well. So now you had like two bands sharing this
same
space.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I didn't know that. This is very fun. And then Sean is saying that he was trying to do the choreography and things with his band, and the band did not really care about it. And he says, that's why our band never got kicking. But Kiss ended up, we know with the trial and error and the fighting, and they ended up going, and that is basically that because of his idea of the choreography that it succeeded. But yeah, that period of time you were talking about as far as the go hiding, that's what they were doing. That's when they were practicing in Sean's rehearsal studio.
Yeah, but also I get the feeling from this that he probably wasn't very authoritative, that's correct word, to them, but he was more like, I think you should do this, but I respect what you feel, but let's videotape it and see what works out best. And that was the way he was working with them all the time. He didn't say like, you should do this, from what I understand what he's saying.
From reading that, he was a little bit walking on eggshells there, so he had to be respectful when he was doing it.
Yeah, but maybe that was quite unusual at the time, to really videotape and analyze things.
It was.
How many bands in 1973 or whatever did that? I can imagine. It's almost like a sport team, You're looking at TV footage and from the last game, and what can we do better?
Exactly. Now people do that, but in the old days, unless you're connected and you have the money behind you, where you can do it. But see, now the thing is that like Bill was already in the television business, so he could easily get a camera and start filming. We're talking 1973 here.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
The video. I remember the very first time I heard about the VCR, which was Beta. What was my first one? I got it in 1979. And I think to the public, it came available like in the 1975-76 is when it really started coming out. Yeah. And now there we are, like 2 years before, and he's got that in his own studio, and he's recording a band that hasn't made it yet. So this is impressive.
I guess everything was very expensive. I can imagine. The tapes and everything was probably very, very expensive at the time. So.
Oh, I remember in the old days. In 1979, if you wanted to buy a blank cassette for a videotape, it was $35 for 3 hours. Wow. That's ridiculous. Now you can buy that for $1.
But
every time.
That's why we have the commentary tape, the two songs from the first night, and one frame from the rehearsal place.
That's because of Bill O'Coin and Sean Delaney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
the frame is actually Alex Bergdahl's because he saw it was there.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. Then you have between that and that afterwards he was asked to be the road manager, and I think he was asked to be the road manager before they played the Academy of Music, probably.
Okay, yeah, because he seemed to be very in charge because that was at the time they were rehearsing at the Fillmore.
Yeah,
If you know that.
yeah.
And he was pretty much like in charge at that point.
Yeah,
Like,
you even have pictures when you can see him in front sitting and watching them.
see? Yes, yes. And they were really kind of. It became. I think. From what I get from him talking is that like the band was always counting on him too for directions at one point because they really. I mean, they did his moves, and then it was working, and there we go. And by the way, when you're gonna hear Sean talking about the move, is when he's talking about, when he said, okay, you're going to go and do over ace and do that time. He said, I call that the move. So when he refers to that word in that tape, that's what it is. And something that is very important that he made Kiss realize is that he never really created them. Kiss was doing it, but they had to hold a pose.
Yeah.
And he said, when you do a play or a movie, there's going to be a scene that is very important. Well, if you're like this and you're going to say something important, you hold the pose. So people can, if you just do it like this and you put your arm down, it went too fast and people don't connect with it. He said, like, Paul, if you want to go and like tease the people with your guitar like this, hold it. For people can connect with you and have time to say, okay, this is what he's doing. So he was teaching Kiss to do that. So all those moves that he told them to do, he basically said, you guys created it. It's not me who did it. It's you guys. I just tell you how to hold it and make it more, a little bit different. But you are the one in charge. So Kiss really created it in one way, but he directed it.
But just also, before we go any further with the Kiss stuff, but just to see how everything is intertwined, is like already before that, Sean Delaney was vice president of Coin Management. Wasn't it called Rocksteady then, or I'm not really sure when it became Coin Management and when it was Rocksteady. But okay, but he was in business with Bill O'Coin.
Yes.
So and he also had a company together with Howard Marks. Already at that point, something they called he had a company called they called the music department. They make jingles for commercials.
Are you talking about Bill O'Coin?
No.
Or are you talking about Sean?
Sean Delaney and Howard Marks.
Really?
Okay. Sean Delaney made commercial jingles for commercials for Howard Marks, and that's probably started a couple of years before because there's a story in Hellbox when he went down to the south somewhere and he rented in a lot of musicians and stuff like that.
See, this is why I really need to read that book because this is the stuff that Sean would not really talk to us about. He was more like direct with Kiss, but now I'm sure that that book is more in details about everything that he was doing.
There's a lot of stuff. Howard Marks is actually quite has a big role in, especially later, and it's really easy to see in the Hellbox that Howard Marks isn't the guy Sean Delaney liked at all.
Really? So now, see, this is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because Howard Marks got involved with Kiss in '76, right?
75, I think. Right?
75. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, now 76. I think.
I
right.
just want a time perspective.
I think you're right because the crew with the the road crew was still with them in '76, and that's when they got axed after the European tour.
Yeah, I think so.
But actually, it's probably earlier because Coin Management moved into Howard Marks' offices because they had 3 offices for that nobody used, so they had office space. So they moved into the same offices as Howard Marks before they started to doing business with them. Really.
Transition. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably why Dennis Volokin got involved with when they needed makeup, because Howard Marks probably did like jobs for them anyway, even if he wasn't on contract with them.
Yeah. Nice. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Wow.
Anything more you want to say about the early touring, or?
I'm trying. I don't want to jump too far ahead,
No.
but yeah, that's pretty much where I am right now as far as what Sean was talking about. He was always, oh, by the way, one thing that he was saying in one of the DVD that I have, he was saying at the very early, when Gene claims that he was sleeping with a lot of girls and things, he said, I would not allow it. Because those guys were working 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to have their rest, their water, and if they were trying to get girls, I'd say no. And I'd be the first one in the morning to say, everybody up, get in a van, and now we're going. So, of course, maybe it was like that at the beginning, but you know that Sean, there was a lot of times, I mean, he's not going to be able to control 4 guys like that, so...
But Sean was the road manager for the very first famous Canadian tour that you did early '74.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, Lydia has the pictures when they're all in the airport waiting to board the plane. It's like those are the very first time I saw those pictures, by the way. It was like, whoa, what the heck am I looking at right now? Because it was in 1988 at the convention, the very first one that Lydia Chris was at. And she said, I have a special book, and a friend of hers was showing it to a fan, and I just happened to be peeking, and oh my God, it's all pretty much a picture that she ended up selling online after it. It was like all the early stuff, the daisies, the diplomat, at the airport, and I'm looking at that and I said, how can such thing exist? It was so wow.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember like some of the quote with Sean. Keep in mind, one time Moose mentioned, there was a quote in the Nothing to Lose books. He's talking about Sean, that when he approached someone, he would talk to him with this Charles Manson expression, those eyes. I've seen those eyes when he's talking to me one time. And I said like, this is so true. He kind of looked like him. He does looks like him. It was like when he talks to you and he's got his eyes all wide open and he's like, he means something, you're scared. You don't know if the guy's going to snap at you or what he's going to do. But, I mean, talking about passion, that guy was so passionate and dramatic that when he'd be trying to tell you something to make you believe in something, you go like, okay, yeah, I believe you. So those stories, like in the very early days, when he was trying to fight for the band, they were coming to a stage. This is from the DVD that I have. And he's saying that, because one guy asked him, said, when did you feel like Kiss made it? It's funny because you ask any band members, when did you think that Kiss made it at different year or different time? And they're going to come sometime with a different answer. The same guy will come with a different answer because we always think and say, you know what? I feel like that time I felt like I really made it. So Sean, one of the first time we asked him, said, when did you think that Kiss made it? He goes, you know what? We never had time to really realize it because we were doing it.
Yeah.
So the fame came in and it totally surprised us because when we were famous, we did not know yet. And then, of course, he was talking about that time that the crowd went to mob them. And to be more in detail, it was at the end, it was in Detroit. They were doing, it was one of the first big venue that they were doing, which was like about 10 to 12,000 people. And at the end of the concert, he said that Gene and Paul were kind of fighting who's going to go with Sean. And that day, Paul said, I want to go back to my room. So Sean went with Paul and they exited those doors where there's only one way. So he opens the door, he goes with Paul outside, and the door shut. And it's a kind of stadium door where there's no handle outside.
Yeah.
And he see 1,500 fans in front of him. and you see the two limos, and it's down the walkway. It's not that far, but it's far enough to, it might be tough. And those people are like waiting because the limos are there. They want to see Kiss coming out. But Sean and Paul,
no security.
No security whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to get to that, because Sean called Bill O'Quinn after that, and he yelled at him, I want security. I want everybody to orchestrate everything. I want to be safe. But so he's talking about this. So when they're trapped, he says, he looked and the entire crowd shifted, because Sean, he said he was dressed in leather. He had his hair dyed black. And then he said, I had my nails. They were long and painted black. Those gloves with the fingers that I cut. He was dressed like a rock star.
Yeah.
So people could see. And now people have no clue how Kiss looks like. So now there comes Paul and Sean dressed in, rock and roll outfit. And now they said, okay, we need to go to those limos. And now people shifted and they looked at them and they start coming towards them. And Sean goes like this. I said, all right, I want an opening here. Everybody do it now. So he said it opened like the Red Sea. It kind of opened. He says, all right, Paul, let's go. So they start walking. And when they were halfway through, the crowd shut on them. And he goes, I am not joking you. I had to punch my way all the way to that limo. And we're talking kids that are 16 to 18 and 19. And when they saw that there would be no confrontation one-on-one, they all got on us. And we made it to that limo, got in there, and I told the limo driver, I said, start driving slowly. We need to get out of here, because they could hear the pounding on top of that roof for that car. And he said, this is when I realized that, okay, we're big. And he said, that's when I called Bill O'Quinn and said, I want security from now on. I want everything to be done correctly. So that's one quote. And you should see when Sean is saying that, the way he's standing up next to us and he's talking with his arm is very, like I said, dramatic.
And this was 75, I guess.
That was 75. That was 75. That was even before Cobo Hall. It was like wow, just before one of the first venues that were big. And then another time we asked him, when do you think Kiss made it? And he came up with a different story. He came up by saying it was that time they were playing for Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath. Yeah. They were supposed to play for them. There was Black Sabbath opening. The special guest was going to be ZZ Top, and then Kiss was opening. And when they got there, the stage was occupied by most of the Black Sabbath equipment. And they had about after they put their equipment there, they had no room.
Yeah.
There's no room. So he said, I used to do this routine, and I go see the promoter and say, and he's done almost like that, the gay acting. He go, I don't know what's going on, but the road crew does not want to help us from the other band, so we really need to do something. And he's playing innocent, but then he'd go back in the venue and say, I want to see the stage manager right now. And the stage manager would come, and he goes, I'd be there, I'd be dressed all in black, and I'd have JR on my side, and I'd have another guy called Moose on the other side. And they each had a buck knife on the side of their pants. And he said, all I had to do is this. And the guys would be coming. So not a guy usually was a small guy, and he would be very scared. So that's how they start moving the stuff. Then he said, I'd go.
Wasn't that the same time he also went to the ticket booth?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting
at.
Yeah,
okay.
So he said, this is what I usually do with the bands. But he said, and this time I called Bill O'Quinn, no help. I called Neil, no help. So what I did, I went to the ticket booth, and I realized that 75% of the tickets were sold for Kiss. So I went to the stage, got the PA system, and I called, I want to see the promoter right now. And he said, if you don't come down here now, we're out of here. And I know we sold 75% of those tickets. So he came out real quick, and he said he was able to push back the Black Sabbath equipment 40 feet down. Yeah. And he said, on top of it, he moved ZZ Top as the opening band, and they became the special guest,
Yeah.
the second band to come in. So he said, "This is when I felt like we really made it, because now the tickets were all for us." So that was the second answer that we got from Sean on.
We'll take. Okay, Roger. The first time you met Sean Delaney.
In person.
Yeah.
Very well. That was that particular morning when Stan asked me to meet him for breakfast in a restaurant called Denny's. It was in spring. It was very cold, and I remember parking my car, getting out. I had a leather jacket on. I still have pictures of that. And then I see Stan arriving. He comes out of the car, and then here comes Sean Delaney. This is my first peek at Sean. He had a sweatshirt, jacket, and he looked like he had this big black mustache, ponytail, and very impressed. He was big and tall, and then going like, "Oh, okay, this is the legend in front of me." And I say hi, very short greeting, and then we go inside, sit down at the table, and Stan has his little recording device where to put a 4-track cassette and put that on the table and start asking the first questions, and then boom, he went on. And that interview was for quite a while. Actually, that what we were reading earlier, those pages, that's what's taken from that recording, all of it.
Yeah.
There's 39 pages of stuff. And I was very, very impressed with the way he was talking, because you could tell the man was hungry to spread it out. He wanted people to know about that. And he informed us that he wanted to write a book. And he also told us a few things about that he got approached by Kiss at one point for the Kiss story, because he has a page dedicated to him. And he was telling us that the band was telling him what to say. So be careful, don't talk about the drugs, don't talk about the girls. But anyway, so he was kind of directed of what to say again. So the interview went for a while. At one point, we were all done eating, and it was a Sunday. And I remember Sunday morning, it's very busy in that restaurant, because people went to party the night before, and everybody is off on Sunday, and they all want to come and eat for breakfast. And the manager came to our table, and he wanted us to go. And I said, "We're almost done. Could we have some more coffee?" And then we stayed more. And then Sean was talking. And I said, at one point, maybe we should move and go to a park or somewhere, and which we did. So we get in the car and we go to a park, and it was not really my idea to go to that park. It was my idea was to get out of that restaurant. But Sean was there for a particular reason that very few people know what he was into. He was getting into medieval fights. And I'm talking about, when people get all dressed up with the armor and they got like those bamboo sticks and they recreate those fights from the Middle Age. Well, they were like that particular afternoon at that park, there was 3,000 people meeting in that park, and for 1 hour they just put their outfit together, and then they're going to come and do a fight. They all attack, and that's why Sean wanted to be there, because he wanted to get involved in that. A friend told him about it and he was interested. But before the whole fight starts, we went to that park, and that's when I brought the books, and I put it down on a picnic table, and I took Stan's recording device, and I put a cassette, 4 tracks in it, and I put it on the table. Actually, I have a picture of that. You can see it. So this is when Sean is looking at the books, and right in front, you see that little device. That's the tape recording. Yeah. I still have a leather jacket. Sean has got short sleeves. He's not freezing. He's tough. And that was one. I have another one too, and you're gonna see the next one is with Stan. The three of us.
Wow.
Looking at the books and he's commenting on it. So he looks good. I mean, really, very impressive too. So this was this particular afternoon, and it was beautiful. He went for it, and he's commenting on the pictures that are there. So I was thinking,
we're gonna play a little afterwards. So it's like.
Sure. And so overall, it did a very good interview. I have about 45 minutes of tape of him looking at the books, and then a friend of his join lady with the kids, and you can see it. It's it's good because you get the kids go, hi Sean, and everything. I mean, it's like, oh hi, how are you? You see how he is. It's like a gentle giant as well when he talks to kids, and very articulate, and it's very fun to listen to. So
And
the
how old was Sean at the time? His late 40s or something.
In his
gonna have to help me on that.
50s, I think.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, he tells it somewhere in
He
the
was born in
document.
1945, I think. So, and this was like 92, 93 or something.
Correct.
Yeah, so he must have been in the late 40s.
He's I think he was 50.
This was 50, okay.
I think it was
Okay.
50, just about 50.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so anyway, so it was a great day. We spent 10 hours altogether from the morning until the late afternoon when there was a fight going on, and we exchanged phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to see him. Actually, at one point he had his old armor, and he'd go every Wednesday. There'd be like a rehearsal fight going on at that park, and I went to see him a few times. He was pretty impressive. He looked almost like Gene, the armor that he had. It was like Gene, and he had like a big sword, and he started fighting. And of course, it was like the first or second week that he was doing it, and there's rules on that thing. If you get hit on the leg, you got to go down on one knee, and he was getting hit left and right on the side, and he was still up and fighting. So he said, "You're supposed to go down," but he was learning the whole craft. And but then after that. As far as the Sean Delaney meeting with him, I had a few conversations by phone, and then Stanley. Here's a picture of me and Stan here. Like, there we go. This is when I met Peter Criss.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a great shot.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite. This was taken actually. That's when Peter Criss was in a record store, and this is the ad for it. So you got the record store. Where is it? The venue. Peter Criss will be there signing autographs, and I like when I have the sign and I have the picture to prove it. See that picture that we're holding there?
Yeah, the Dress to Kill.
Dress to Kill. I'll show you the back of it, how it looks like. This I bought that in New York before I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's signed by
Bob Gruen.
Bob Gruen. Dress to Kill.
Yeah, cool.
But the back is what's important. So I got the four of them.
Oh, wow.
So Ace, Gene. So Paul did something cool. He put Dress to Kill for Roger.
Yeah, cool.
That's amazing. Wow.
And you got the Peter Criss on the bottom there. So that was cool. But to go back to the story of sometime I'd get some phone call with Sean, and that's the time that I called him and I said, okay, I have the recording when Ellison Steele, and that's when I told him.
Mm-hmm.
But then I received a phone. I got a phone call from Sean. This is a side that is quite unusual. Sean calls me and says about Stanley that he was very, very sick. And I knew that, but like I told you in the past, I thought it was asthma that he had, but he had cystic fibrosis, and then that's when Sean educated me on that, because Stan would never talk about it. And I didn't know, I never met someone who had that. So on the phone, Sean tells me, Stan is very sick and he has cystic fibrosis, and most of the people that have that at that time, they don't pass 20 years old. They die very young. Mm. And Stan was already at 22 at that point, 21 or 22. So he was getting towards the end. Mm. And sometime he had to go to the hospital. And then he just informed me that he went to the hospital. And I said, which one did he go? I'd like to go say hi to him. He said, he tells me the name of where it was. And I said, I'll go and see him tomorrow. He said, actually, I have a surprise for him tomorrow. Sean called Gene and Paul. Wow. And they both gave Stan a phone call.
Cool.
Wow.
So when I got to the hospital, I see Stan, and Stan is like, he's in the tubes everywhere. He's like in bad shape, but you could see the glimpse. He was so happy because he said, you'll never believe what did happen to me. And then I played dumb. I said, I don't know what. He said, I received a phone call from Paul and Gene wishing me well. And he said, that was incredible. And he knew that it was because of Sean, of course, because he knew that Sean knew him. That was the only way he could have that kind of a connection. Even though there was like things going between Sean and Kiss, Sean was able to reach them anytime he wanted to.
Yeah.
That's one thing. They always had the communication somewhere.
And how much contact did he have with Gene and Paul at the time? I mean, this was the 90s.
I could not tell you because it was very personal between him and them. But one of the funniest stories, I never told you that particular scene, because when you talk with Sean, sometimes he's going to tell you something that he never told anyone else. And he was said, when you're on the road, that was in 76. When you're on the road with Kiss, there's so much going on. And one time I received a check for $35,000. That was a paycheck that he got. Now, is that for a month, 2 months? I don't know. But he said, I had a check from Oak Wine. And when you're on the road, you get everything you want. You're fed, you got a room. So he said, I forgot about it. So I put it in my briefcase or whatever. And he said, I saw it a few months after and I wanted to go cash it. And he said, I could not cash it because there's an expiration time on that check. So he was explaining things like that. So I don't know if he was able after to, settle up with Oak Wine to get another one, but that check he could not cash it. He said, he was just trying to tell me how involved they are when they are on the road. There's so much going on. So,
but
that was one example.
It really feels in the 70s that it was really on and off with Kiss.
Yes, exactly.
Because
Bill kept calling him back.
Yeah, because after the first period he worked with Kiss, he worked with Stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's
but then and I think he really, it seems in one way that he got more or less involved in the same way with Stars that he did with Kiss, but he was brought back to Kiss again when they started having problems, because probably because they were the breadwinners.
Yeah, and also it was because of that set that they had.
Yeah,
with the tree and everything.
Yeah,
they hated
everything,
it.
But that must have been between the Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over tour.
Rock and Roll Over.
Yeah,
it had to be. And he was mentioning that when he got called to come back and help Kiss, that Stars was doing very well. They had standing ovation. They were opening for Aerosmith, and they were doing very, very well. And there we go. Now you're doing fine with the band you just started, and boom, you're pulled because you say you need to come and fix what's wrong with Kiss. And that story when he did that expo. But for the listener who don't know exactly what happened, when he arrived at that big hangar for the rehearsal, everybody, all the crew wants to leave and they hate that set. And then
that's also in your document, or was it in Hellbox?
Documents. I have it here.
Yeah.
And it's also in that video from in Amsterdam where he's talking about that in very detail.
Yeah.
That he goes and see the members of Kiss, what's going on, and he says, if the crew's not happy, they can go. I mean, it's we are the big stars. And then Sean goes on stage and grabs a microphone and says, okay, I spoke with the guys from Kiss, and they said they are the stars, and you are nothing. You can go if you don't like it, and people starts going.
And that's amazing that Sean did an expo in Holland, of all places. Maybe we should talk about that later. But what year was that? Was that many years before?
No,
you said it was a few months before he passed away, right?
Yeah, I think
it was only a few months.
I think I think that also was in 2003. I think.
Okay, it was. Okay.
Wow.
Amazing.
So, probably at the same time he did an interview for 8th Grade Films.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he doesn't. I don't think he looks very healthy in those clips, really. It could be that
he doesn't. I mean, I did know him when he was like much heavier, and when I saw that, I said, "Oh my God!" I was shocked when I saw his face. Mm. It was scary. It was very, very scary to me. I mean, his voice was still there, but the appearance, it was like a different man to me.
Yeah, because Lydia also had pictures of him, Moose, and JR. I think they were celebrating New Year's or something. Maybe 2000.
I've seen that.
2002 to 2003, I think.
And Sean doesn't really look healthy on those pictures either. He looks very old and very tired, and he looks, I don't know. He doesn't look healthy.
I'm glad I met him at the time I met him.
Yeah.
Because it was really like he was coming out and he was like hungry for things. Just to put perspective on that DVD that I have.
Yeah.
That DVD is 45 minutes. That's probably the most animated interview that I've seen of Sean Delaney. It's funny because I received a phone call from a friend, and he said, from Sean actually. Sean says, I would like you to bring the books with you. We're going to go meet someone. That's all I got. And so I called a friend of mine, Chris McMoran. He lived in Phoenix at that time. Very big Kiss fan. And he had the bright idea of bringing his video camera with him. I did not ask him to do that. He did it, which was great, with a tripod. So we get in that guy's office, very casual guy. He had actually sneakers on, pants, and I mean like very like jeans. And we go meet this business guy in his office. There's like pictures everywhere on the wall, and I still have no clue who that guy is. So bring the books, and we're here to show him the books. So we said, okay. We put the first book down. We put the camera from one angle, from like on the side behind the guy that was looking at the book. So Sean is in front. You see him face front and sideways, and then he's talking about every pictures. And Sean at that particular day wants to impress him with his story, because I found out after that, at the end of that video, you hear about it, that this guy is going to get the deal for Sean, who's going to be writing his book and who's going to be publishing it. So now Sean wants to give him the best story they are. So now I said, this is going to be good. So he's talking about that. And then at one point, we move the camera from a different angle so we can see the guy, and we see Sean sideways. And but now, see, this guy was a broker. And because the guy was a broker, he's involved with like other stories that are like, for example, scandals that happened with the president or with somebody else. So he's going to jump on that, make a story, and make money out of that. And the guy also has incredible stories about to make money as well. So for that particular reason, that's why this DVD will probably never be published. So if you want to see it, you come to my house and I will show it to you.
Would love to do that.
Yeah. So, but I kept the best stories, and I wrote those down. So when they pop up, for example, that Black Sabbath story I was talking earlier, that was taken from that. But one story that came out that is quite incredible, if you ever heard of that, is that the one about Sean's tattoo. He has a tattoo on his. If you take the Kiss story book, on page 37, there's a picture of Sean. He's showing his tattoo. It's like a dragon.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody asked him, "How did you get that?" And he goes, "Actually, how did I get that? I can tell you a story."
I'll get it. Just a minute. Just continue.
Sure. And so when he goes and he tells the whole story about that, is that they were in Japan, and when they're going to where the limos are, they get out of the limo, and there's a very short street, and at the end of the street there's like thousands and thousands of fans that wants to go in, and there's the Japanese police that is there. And he said, in Japan, the police has the right to beat you to death if they want to, and they're not going to get into trouble. That was back in 92 or 94 when he was telling me that.
Yeah.
Actually, that particular interview, I'm sorry, I have a date on it. It was August 6, 1995. I wrote it down because I remember looking at that segment. You know, sometimes you push the button and the date appears on the bottom. I remember, so I wrote that one down.
32?
Sorry?
You said the page was?
37.
37. And
then, so there's this kid that breaks from the crowd, and he runs towards Kiss. And there you
Let's see if it's possible to get it.
Oh yeah, that picture I remember. Yeah,
that's picture. So you want to go see it. It's like a dragon coming down with the head.
Yeah.
So that's it. We see it very well.
Yeah.
So we go. So the kid comes in, and then the police is running after him, and Sean goes first, grabs the kid and says, it's okay, he's with us. So he basically saved the kid's life. And he goes and talks to the kid, says, what are you doing? You can't do that. Be careful. Here's a ticket, and go with the crowd, and then you come back and see the whole concert. So Sean goes about an hour and a half later. There's this, I'm going to show you. You all know this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when you open it, first page, second, and third. On the third page, there's a picture of the crew.
The whole
Yeah,
crew,
that's a great shot.
See this man over here with the in green?
Yeah.
Okay. He is the promoter,
Yeah, Udo.
Yeah,
Mr. Udo.
Mr. Udo, yeah.
Mr. Udo. So this man, Sean was describing him as when people come close to him, people don't even look at him in the eyes. They're all afraid of him. And when he goes, da, 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 and then they all walk away. It's funny when Sean does that. You should just see him doing this. It's so funny. And he goes, Sean, I want you to meet somebody very important. And Sean goes, if this man is afraid of who he's going to introduce me to, who is this man? It turns out the man is a very important man. So the man speaks only in Japanese, and he tells Mr. Udo that the kids that he saved was his son. And Sean can ask anything, and he will give it to him. So Sean goes, I'm in Japan. I want a tattoo. But Sean did not know that in Japan, tattoo is illegal. Only
criminals have them.
The mob.
criminals have
the
exactly.
Mob.
Only people like that. So he found out that that particular night after the concert at 10 o'clock, they had him go somewhere, and they flew the Yakuza. That's the one that does those tattoo by the old-fashioned way, with the bamboo sticks.
Yeah.
They flew lady, and then he had the tattoo done from 10 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning. That's how long it took to do that tattoo that you saw. It was one shot, not 2 days, 3 days. It was a one-shot deal. So I thought it was a pretty cool story when he's telling us the particular story. But he said getting that tattoo is another 20-minute story, which I never heard.
No.
But that would have been cool. And that was at the end of that video that he told us this particular story, which was quite interesting.
But over to something else. There's a quote here before we get on to later stuff that's really early that I love in your document here. It's about when you ask him when did you first earn their respect, and Delaney says the first time I was right, and exactly. I think the respect had to be earned from Gene. The rest of the guys in the band were followers.
See?
Ace was oblivious. Ace was just there. Peter, as long as he was styling and profiling.
Profiling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Paul wasn't sure what to do. He was insecure. Gene had to know exactly what to do. Paul basically followed Gene.
See?
Yeah.
So then you can see how much Kiss had changed today.
I was going to tell you that because now it's like it is totally reversed because now Paul is in charge pretty much. Judging by most of the people that are in the Kiss world, that's what they will tell you. But at the beginning, Jane was the one taking like the horns, and people would be following him.
So that probably changed in the end of the 70s, I think.
Yes, definitely. The 80s did it when Gene was going away and Paul kept everything going, and which is in everyone's books. They talk about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We know about the whole story of that.
Okay.
Do you want to?
I'm just thinking about it. It's also we won't get us into that, but also I'm not sure if you're going to play that part of the tape, but he also talks about what he feels about the guys, and it's like it's very obvious that he has more respect for Paul, Gene, and Ace than he has for Peter.
Yeah, I'm not going to play that part.
No, and we're not going to go deep into that either. But
no.
I find it kind of ironic when you think about when you saw the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the only one who mentioned Sean Delaney was Peter.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yes, I remember that. He's the only one who mentioned them. Yeah, I mean, you see those guys, they change. You ask Peter Criss what his favorite album is one year, and the year after is going to say something different. And those guys, they have memories. They remember things before certain events that, what, I really like that guy after all. And But it's true. I'm so glad that one of them talked about Sean at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, sure.
Because he deserved it. Him and Bill,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
And also from that tape, it's so obvious that he really loves Ace.
He does. And yeah, because Ace, he said, when he talks about Ace, he says, Ace is Ace. He mentioned also in it that he never, ever heard Ace talking bad about anyone ever in his entire life.
No, he just had fun with everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After Rock and Roll Overture, it's pretty obvious that he probably was away for a little while again, because he was working with Toby
Bow.
That's how I pronounce it. But he produced the album. It's here.
Yes, and that's a very big important thing, because as far as a producer, this is when he was starting to be known that he can produce the album, and this is important because it's going to lead to Gene's solo album at one point. But that was his
first double platinum.
And
was
right. That correct?
Yeah.
And
he had already wrote some songs with Kiss as well at that point, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I think my impression is that he was there for the whole Rock and Roll Overture and went to Japan, and then went to Japan with them in
77.
And according to Sean Delaney, the number one reason why he went to Japan is because Gene and Paul could not write songs anymore. Okay. So he was taking from that Tony Bow tour, and that's where he went. And like he was explaining, one day it'd be with Paul, the other day it'd be with Gene. They're rooming, and Ace says.
So we went on tour with them first before he went to Japan with them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then he goes. Yes, and then Ace at one point says, "How about me?" And then he went with Ace one night, and that's when he wrote Rocket Ride. Yeah. And speaking of Rocket Ride, when we asked him which are the songs that you enjoyed the most, that you love the most, that you created with Kiss, and he says, "I Want You," "Making Love," and Rocket Ride. Those were his three favorites.
Cool.
And they used Mr. Speed for the movie, or didn't they?
The movie Speed. It was not for that movie, but in that movie they ended up using it. That was at the point when we met Sean.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, I'm making money now because they have to pay royalties. And since Sean is one of the writer for that song, then he gets money every time it's played or used somewhere.
Yeah. I know that Mr. Speed is on the Speed soundtrack, but it's in the movie as well.
He said it is in the bar scene. It's very, very short. You barely hear any of it. He was trying to explain it to me. I tried to listen to it. I don't really hear it, but when they go in a bar at one point towards the beginning of that movie, you can hear it when somebody comes out of the bathroom. I think you're talking about.
I have to check that.
Yeah, it's tough. But it's there.
So the next, let's see.
Trying to go double.
Yeah,
double
we're thinking double platinum. I'm just trying to find out which page that was on.
It's kind of far.
So working with double platinum must have been like late 77, early 78.
78.
78, early 78. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he also came straight from a tour also then, I think.
Actually, he was producing.
He was producing
an album. He was producing an album, and he was, like he said, he was fried, dead tired because they had a deadline, and he finished at the very last minute. And as soon as he flew back to New York, that's when Bill called him and said, "You need to go to England to do 21 tracks for double platinum."
And what was it? Was it Sean who took the master tapes with him when he was flying to London, or who did that? I heard a story about that. That someone was actually carrying the master tape with him or something. Or
I don't have this info. It's on page 11. It's on page 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to read some of it?
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the double platinum. This is Stan was asking how did the double platinum album come about, and Sean goes, Mike Stone and I were in England, and then Stan is asking, is that the Mike Stone? Is Mike Stone the same that's on Peter's new album? And he goes, nah, no. He said, I saw that too. And I said, Mike doesn't play anything. Anyhow, Mike Stone and I just done a group for RCA called Toby Bow. We had been in the studio for 7 to 8 weeks. We had finished that on a deadline, dead tired. Bill O'Quinn calls me up and goes, you have to remix 21 title. We had just gotten back into New York. I was beat and I was dead tired. The thing is, you had to leave the next morning. Bill says, Mike has already been told. They literally came and got me out of my bed and shoved me into a limousine. They sent me off to England. The only exciting thing about is that made me feel a little bit better. I am in the back of this limousine, crashed out. I open my eyes, and all I can see is the Concorde, the plane, which got my attention. I hadn't been flying like this tiny, and I am on that flight. Okay, they open up the limousine door. Cameras are there to see what celebrities are coming out. Here I am, black hair, all in different directions, leather jacket and ear puffs. Laughter. Then he goes, anyway, Concorde back to England. We had to do 21 title remix in 9 days. We sat there with lines of snow, and we don't think we slept for 9 days. I am not joking. I never went home. I will say it was one of the most amazing thing that I did. For that, we had to do, in doing a double platinum album, we had to find a constant, and then it's nothing said after that. Because there are different producers on the album. So now this is when it goes that they had to take the masters from different, like Bob Ezrin was very different than Eddie Kramer. So I'm not going to go in detail on that because he talked about that.
But that's also, it's like the Bob Ezrin tracks were so perfect, so they had to use the Ezrin tracks as a template for all the other tracks to mix them, because it was impossible to do anything with the Ezrin tracks. And he also said he learned a lot about how Eddie Kramer was producing because he had to mix those tracks the most, because he had to make them as like as he could to the Ezrin tracks.
Yeah. So, and a funny thing in there, when I asked him, I said, was Kiss happy about the idea of having to make this double platinum? And then, because sometimes there's some people like a band that they're told they have to release an album and they take some greatest hits. People don't like it too much. And he says, they liked it. If it means more money, they liked it. So that was the answer for Kiss that he had on that particular question.
I guess it was right in time as well. I mean, there was no other greatest hits album available at that time. So, I mean, it was, it was totally right for the band.
Here's this segment here that kind of ties up Double Platinum and Gene's solo album. I was new at producing albums to get the record company to say, oh, Sean, do it. Well, they figured that Jimmy Yeaner was going to oversee it. Well, Jimmy says, yeah, I'll oversee it. I'll be the executive producer. But he did. Then Sean goes, but I did it myself. That's one of the reasons Gene asked me to produce his solo album. So the fact that he produced Double Platinum is what gave him the ticket to go with Gene.
Yeah. And it's also, he's asked about the Strutter 78 track also.
The song?
Yeah. And he calls it the disco version of Strutter, and then he laughs. I wasn't there when they recorded Strutter 78 and more laugh, and I remember sitting thinking, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
But think about
exactly.
Here's Casablanca, the biggest disco label in the world.
See?
True.
But the fan did not really complain about it. They did complain about I Was Made for Loving You, but not Destroyer 78.
No.
And that's what he talks about in there.
So then it's I'm not sure. Somewhere in this time frame, he also recorded the demos with Peter for Peter's solo album. So that if that was probably in the middle between Double Platinum and Gene's solo album, though.
Probably, because it was just yes. And then he was supposed to do Peter's album, and Peter went with a different producer.
Yeah.
And then that's when he went with Gene. And then isn't that like Peter wanted to have him after?
There was some discussion about that, but then he was also then Gene had was also already taken him. But I've heard him talk about Peter's solo album before, and he says he tracked a lot of vocal tracks for Peter to follow on the tracks.
Wow.
They recorded, and on I Can't Stop the Rain, he said you can probably hear as much of his voice on the recording than Peter's. Yeah. But the voices are quite similar, so it's difficult to know.
Yeah, he did sing on Gene's albums too, backing vocals. But obviously the Gene Simmons solo album, there's a lot going on in there, and he talks a lot about different things, but he said he went for 3 months, and everything was secretive. Like Gene was a freak about having nobody knowing about anything that was going on.
Yeah.
So that was quite. I'm sure he could have probably written an entire book just on the making of the Gene solo album.
Yeah, sure. And there was so many special guests there, like Pat Schaefer and.
Gene wanted members of Beatles to appear on the album as well, and there was a lot of I don't know what Gene had in his mind at the time. I mean, it was. He
talked to me about that, and he said that we almost had it, and at the very last minute, one member backed out.
Really?
They had everything arranged, everything was going to happen, and the very last minute, one backed out at the very end.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't know either. I knew that the album was recorded in England, but I didn't know there were overdubs done in New York and in Los Angeles afterwards also.
Yeah, he used the other two, the Cherokee and the Electric Lady, which you kind of, to throw a quick story from 1976.
Yeah.
In there, when they were on tour, that's from the video that I have. They were, those two cats on each side of the drums, the big statues. They were made of plexiglass, fiberglass. I'm sorry, they were very light.
Yeah.
And the one time they were late to bring them, so the entire crowd were already there, and the stage is before they start the whole show. He said, "We need to bring those," but he said, "Hey guys, we're gonna make believe that those are real, made of stone. So we're gonna take like 3 or 4 guys and bringing it." So the 4 of them, they all bring it, and they walk really slowly, and they bring the statue. And meanwhile, there's this little skinny guy want to go and help him, and he take the other statue and walk next to the whole crowd.
That's a great
said,
story.
"Oh my God!" He said, "But this is a true story." Sean was saying that he was like, "Oh my God, that was a good one." God. There's another one too. You're probably going to like that. Talking about Sean getting his recognition. Paul Chavaria.
Yeah.
He worked for Kiss from 1974 till 1979. Yeah. Then after that, he went to work with other big bands. And in 1987, he was with David Bowie. And Sean went to see him when they were setting up the whole stage. And Paul was really in charge, and he asked everybody, "I want everybody to stop now." And Sean was with them, and he goes, "This is Sean Delaney. Everything I know, this guy taught me how to do it." So cool. That was a pretty big statement right there, because you stop the entire crew that said everything for David Bowie, and you go like, boom, this is the guy. This is my tutor, my mentor, pretty much.
Wow.
That's how he was. So that was good. That was like
big words. Big words.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's got to be tons of people that can authenticate this statement. Obviously, the people that were there.
Yeah.
If we go back to the solo album, what I found is really strange in the document. He tells that Cher came over to England after
Correct.
2 or 3 days,
And stayed until the end.
Yeah, but later he also you've heard the story, and that came on a couple of days ago when Katie Segal told that she was going out with Gene.
I did publish. I mean, in my book, I have one of the soap opera magazine that has the Kate and another girl, and they're talking about a fight between the two of them. I mean, the three of them.
And she was probably in England also, so that must have been a really strange. If she didn't record it in some of the other studios, but that must have been really strange.
You know what? All the stuff that happened backstage with, I mean, we're talking about a lot of celebrities that were involved in there, and you know how Gene was. He loves women, and he can get in trouble easily.
Yeah.
You're that popular, so yeah, I can see some drama happening there for sure.
And he also describes Gene's songs. All the songs we did were basically songs that had been written by himself. It's strange when Gene writes by himself. It wouldn't be very rock. It would be funky, like pretty folk stuff.
Folk stuff, exactly. Yeah. And this is not funny. And he said that he had to take all his lyrics and stuff, and they had to build songs, I mean, the music around them. He's talking about that. He said there was a lot of work, but we pulled it.
Yeah, he said he arranged a lot of stuff also, but it's like it could be on some songs, but most of them exist as demos before. So it's I'm not really sure what songs those are he's talking about there. But
what about when Stan asked him what was the best his favorite stars or guest that was to play for this album? Mm-hmm. He was talking about Grace Slick was his favorite.
Yeah,
but then he said that Grace Slick did not work. They never really did anything because it didn't fit the sound. But it was his favorite guest to come and play there.
But I think he really liked her before that also. So it probably was was a fan in the first place also.
Jerry Lee Lewis also was there.
What's really funny is also when he's talking about that. Gene actually tried so very hard on the solo album because everybody thought that Paul was the main vocalist in Kiss, so he really tried to overdo Paul.
Mm-hmm. He did. He did talk about that because I mean obviously Paul was the one in charge, but then again you can see now Gene his voice is still amazing.
Yeah.
To this day, it's like wow, it's like
absolutely
the guy is not fading. He's doing good.
So,
did you see that part when the Mike Stone talks to Gene, the way he treats his guys?
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Where did I put it?
That's on page 22.
Yeah, but I'm not really sure if it's actually if he really hit him.
Accurate.
He hit him?
I think according to that, it did because, I think it did because after that, he went very smoothly. He said everything went smoothly after that. So, because he was basically, Gene was very he was treating people like
Mike Stone jumped up and nailed Gene.
So hard at the dinner table. Yeah, he did. He said Mike Stone jumped up and nailed Gene so hard at the dinner table. One night he said, how can you treat these people like shit? Don't you know who those people are, man? These are the top musicians from New York. He just jumped his ass. I remember sitting there going, whoa, this album is over.
And it's really funny, Gene's response, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, I really didn't.
And then he goes, everything went smoothly after that.
Yeah.
But again, see, this is a quote from Sean. So what we say here, we only like the messenger. We just give you what was spoken by someone. So
that's what we talked about in
whatever
the first place. It's like it's our, and that's how we feel what's coming out of the interviews here.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a funny part. I mean, when I read that, I said, "Oh boy, here we go. Somebody just went up to him and just confronted him." So that was pretty good.
But what did Sean say about the songs on the album? What were his impressions of the songs? You know, what was his the songs he was most happy with, or not happy with, or what was, you know?
When I talked to him personally about the album, he was the very first thing would come out of his mouth was that was the most selling album of the four.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was saying. Obviously, you know, if you go around and ask all the Kiss fans, I think Ace going to come number one overall. Yes. But talking with Sean, he was also when he talks about the intro of the first song, he talks a lot about that, how weird. So he went, instead of saying exactly which one he liked, he was like going in detail about how one was created. He did not really say what he liked, and if he kept, well, there's other things that he talks about,
but here's a little long quote that I really think shows a lot about what he at least afterwards felt about his feeling to the whole organization. Really, I was vice president of coin management. There was Bill and there was me. We were the two. I was always there. When problems would happen and things would go wrong, they would say, "Where's Sean?" I'd be pulled out or sucked back in one more time. Then once they got it all right again, then it would turn into a nasty love affair. We would break up and I would go do another project. They'd get jealous and I would be sucked back in.
Okay. And that happened quite a few times.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Sean is claiming that he was with Kiss until 1980-81.
I think he was.
But it was on and off.
I think he more or less was in 79.
Beginning of 79.
It's not in the document, but it's in Hellbox, and from what I understand, it's the breakup really came before. Actually, before they started.
Dynasty?
No, actually, while they were working on Gene's solo album.
Okay.
Because he felt that Howard Marks was trying to more or less take over the band from Bill, and he didn't feel that Bill was taking him seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he, at that point he said Kiss was more or less the glue that held him and Bill together. So I think the breakup between Sean and Bill started at that point, and over a year or something like that afterwards, it was a full break. He went to California for a while, and then after he came back, it became a full break. And then it started with Scat Brothers and stuff like that. But in between that, he released Highways, an incredible album. All those who haven't heard it must listen to it.
It's on YouTube. You can find it there.
Yeah.
For me, it's actually it feels like the fifth Kiss solo album in one way.
Wow.
Okay.
That makes. I mean, the guy was with them. He was living with them. So.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And you can see on the back here, it's dedicated to Guy, Gene, Paul, Ace, and Peter. It is difficult to tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's also a great shot of Sean and Kiss backstage in, believe it's New York, 1979.
Yeah.
when Kiss was on tour, and they played New York, and Sean went there. So
You went to visit. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember seeing that photo somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Sean visiting the bands, I was telling you earlier that broker that was trying to publish Sean's book. So when they did the reunion tour 1996 in Phoenix, Arizona, then he was able to go backstage. I don't know who he talked to, but he said that to me because I saw him a week or two after, and he said that Gene was pissed that Sean was able to make it backstage.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's terrible.
There was a little something going on there. But I know that at that point there was very limited who can go backstage. So
yeah.
But you're talking about like the last days of.
Yeah.
That's a ticket when one of the band. That was back in '94, right here. That's the band that he had. I had ticket. I went to see him perform actually in that very small club that can. There's maybe less than 100 people that can fit in that club, and he was playing there, and he was playing keyboard for that particular band.
Okay.
So that's the only one time that I saw Sean performing live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had a couple of bands after that also, but we after Kiss, the first first you had the first Scat Brothers.
Oh wow!
Album.
Look at him.
That's quite. It's an
Can't miss
okay
him.
album, but that's quite disco. That's the album they had a hit with in Australia.
So, what year was this released?
This is 97.
Okay.
But I think Life at the Outpost became a hit in 1980, I think. A little earlier than when Unmasked came out. And after that, they came out with Rico and the Ravens, Scat Brothers. And this, the first Strange Spirits album, it's a good album, but this Rico and the Ravens, this is a really great album.
Sean is in the middle. Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
There he
And
is.
you can see he's also in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have
I've never seen that.
Richie Fontana also.
The drummer.
Oh, yeah.
So
Wow.
this is an incredible album. It's quite difficult to get because it was only released in Australia.
Lydia and Sean were very, very, very close. They talk only very good thing about each other all the time. And yeah, as you know, Richie Fontana is with Lydia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little circle there.
I
Nice.
also think, from what I understand in Lydia's book, Sean was one of them who really felt for her afterwards, after the divorce, and he also said that on the tape. He
In
was
the tape, it's like,
he wasn't happy.
That was pretty drastic there when he talked about that. Yeah, he was pretty pissed. A thing that I can tell about Sean too, in 1995, he's the one who came to me when we were doing that video, and he said, by the way, Kiss is planning a reunion tour. That's the very first time I heard of it. That was after the conventions, and it was just before it was announced, and he said, that's why I want to get my book done, released before they hit the road again. So that was a motivation to try to make it as quick as possible. But he is the one who told us, and we were like, what? So...
But now I don't remember where it is, but in this document it tells the story about he probably was backstage during the Revenge period also.
Okay.
Because he's talking about Eric Singer also. He had.
That's right.
He's asked how it was to meet him.
That's
again.
right. That's right, because they talk about that, and exactly, he said he actually, and he talks. He says that Eric Singer is a better drummer than Peter Criss, but he's not Peter Criss.
Yeah.
So Kiss will never be Kiss, as long as Peter and Ace are not in there. That was very, very clear in this interview. He said you can bring the best guitarist or the best drummer in the world. If it's not those two guys, it's not Kiss.
But it also feels like he thought that, towards him.
I felt that too when I read the interview.
So and at that point he was also asked about the reunion, and he didn't. It seems like he didn't feel it were going to happen because they were starting to get too old, and they were satisfied with things as they were. So,
Well,
but that changed fast.
Yeah.
Sure did. It sure did.
But yeah. Besides the band Blonder Tongue that you showed the ticket to, he also had a country and western band in Utah called.
Okay, that I lost that part. I mean,
Yeah.
I was not following him at
Yeah,
that
but
point.
I'm not really sure. It could be before that actually, because he was he looks a lot heavier in that picture. Now I don't remember what to pronounce it. I think it's a mountain range or something like in Utah called Wasatch or something like that.
Yeah, I remember, Nils. You showed me a picture about that. Yeah, I remember.
And
He
from what I understand, they probably recorded and released a cassette locally in Utah. And if anybody knows anything about that, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear anything recorded by Sean Delaney that I haven't heard. So if anybody has,
It's out there.
Yeah, if anything's out there, please contact me.
Yeah.
Make this guy's day. Yeah. Well, let's see. Me personally, I mean, I was with Sean from 1992 until '96, and then I kind of lost because I moved to Vegas after that, and we lost contact. So the next thing I found out is that he passed away. So we never really had any connection after that. But the time that I had with him, I really enjoyed. It was great. Like if you see this shirt right now, this is Moose's business. Audio. Yeah. This is DJ Audio. So when I met Moose the very first time, I got a shirt from his business that he has. And the business that he does, basically what he does, he built the whole company from ground up. He's a CEO. He's in charge of it. Is if you have like an old 1933 movie that you want to restore, you bring it to him, and he's going to do that. There's a lot of machinery that he had in his office, and that's what he does. So anyway, the very first time I was with Ken Sharp, we made it together. The three of us, and that's a shirt from Moose.
That's cool.
So talking with those guys that were with the band in the very early days, it's so fun. I mean, they have so much that they can tell you, and it's like I keep telling him, I said, if I can go back in time with you guys and see what you were doing, you'd probably be bored because you did it already. But me, I mean, I would be like crazy to look at all that. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Just have to check something. There's something I want to talk about also. In the last, from my understanding, and I think that's a beautiful thing to. He worked with the English country and western band for the last couple. I'm not sure if it was years, but at least the last year. That was called Smith and Jackson, and they recorded a song on their album after Sean passed away. They have a song called "Ballad of Sean Delaney," and and the song starts with the tape from Sean's answering machine.
Wow.
Okay.
It's really great, and after that, Dee Dee and her boyfriend they posted the last song. I don't have the link here, so I could probably post it, or you can Google it online. It's a song called "Good Man" that supposedly is the last song he ever recorded. And that's online, so you just Google it and you'll find it.
Okay.
I can post a link in the description also if I find, when I post
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But before we just started to play the tape, we just had to sum it up and say, Sean Delaney probably were so important to Kiss' career.
Yeah. No Sean, no Kiss.
I don't think so either.
That's my what I feel about this. You know.
Yeah.
Or if there would be a Kiss without Sean, it would be a different Kiss for sure.
Very different. He made them. He made Kiss like from ordinary musicians to superstars. I think that was Sean's work. You know, he made what Kiss became. You know, sort of a larger than life kind of band. I think. Yeah. That's the way it feels. You know, if you ask me about it.
Yeah,
you know?
and what comes through in so all of it, it's like he really loved those guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yes, he did. He was like their protector.
Yeah.
He says nobody is gonna fuck with my band. Nobody is gonna touch him, and that's why he was like a principal. He was like in charge of everything as far as very regiment. You guys, you got to go. Everybody in the van, and he kept saying that. He said they were my guys. I was not gonna let anybody screw with them. He was very adamant about that.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna let people hear the tape now.
Enjoy the tape, sure.
And,
so I have the very first little segment I'm going to play, and then there's another one further down. So at one point I'm going to stop it, and if you want to comment on what just happened, I'm going to forward it to the next part I want to play.
And you're going.
And I have some pictures to show.
Yeah.
I got the pictures to go because he's going to be basically at the very beginning of the tape. He's going to be talking about the fact that he wants to write a book.
Yeah.
And then after that, he's going to say, okay, let's open those books that I have. And he got the picture and he comments on them. So and there's some like, you'll see the man is a storyteller. You'll see how good he is. So I'm going to go close from when the speakers are, and hopefully you'll be able to catch everything he's talking about. So here it is.
Write. I mean, when I say write, you know, like write things that can turn into a book and do the real story. I think so. Because, you know, I know there's a lot of fans out there, but there's something in me that says there's a betrayal that's going on that if you're really a Kiss fan, you would want to know. You would want to know the real story of it all, not the what you want presented to you so it looks cool and you'll still like me and wow, aren't we cool? Mm-hmm. You know, there's a real story that has not been told, and I know because of this last book being told. Just talk about the good things, Sean. Don't mention any of the drugs, the alcohol, the woman, you know, the women. I mean, it goes on. I mean, like I've said to Stan before, there's a lot of good times. I mean, I was able to see the world first class, anywhere I wanted to go because of this whole phenomenon. But if you don't balance it out with the truth, then that's all it is fantasy. You know, and by the end of your life, all you have is your experiences. And if you feel betrayed, sure, of course, you know. So anyway, let me look at this book. Yeah, sure. This looks incredible.
All right. Bill O'Coin signed that one in '88.
Well, damn, you ought to have me sign this sucker. See, that's my damn show. Anybody bring a pen this time? Looks into his pockets, but no. There's one in my car. That's not a people. Wait, what's that? That's right. Sign it on the... No. If you had a pen, I'd get one. Well, hold it if you'd like me to sign it.
I want to. I really do. Okay, we'll start with the beginning. I mean, the earliest thing we can have.
Listen, I'll tell you a story. I don't know what Dan told you. I'll tell you the truth. In the beginning, there was the New York Dolls.
Yeah.
The guys all tried looking like women. But if you notice, they're all ugly. I don't know if they told you this, but we were all ugly. And Gene was fat. Paul was fat. Peter has pock skin, you know. Ace has pock skin. They're ugly. We're talking ugly boys. Not pretty boys like, oh, I'm so boy George. No, we're talking ugly. Didn't work. I mean, here they are. Here's check. I mean, Shirley MacLaine, please. That's what I told him.
It is.
You know, it is.
looks horrible.
Of course it looks horrible because it's stupid. They're trying. Let's see, Paul is still not on. He's there.
Yeah, Paul's the only one who looks like Ellis, probably.
A rare pre-makeup, that's right. There's the mask that they tried to make him wear. Now, here's something. Did Paul ever tell you about this? What did he tell you?
Handles.
That's right.
He never told me though, but Stan told me about it.
This thing here, I had some friends that were gay and into S&M. And they would say to me, I said, where did you get that thing around your neck? You know, these dog collars. We have friends that have a store called the Pleasure Chest. So I went to the Pleasure Chest, talked to the guys, and we made him this corset.
That's what it is, basically. It's a corset.
It was down onto his hip, up to here. I would get behind him, put my knee into it, and lace this sucker up. And he'd get there and go, Johnny Dash, you want to be beautiful? You want to be a star? Let's do it or let's quit. Yeah, that's right.
I want to be a star.
That's why the star was on his face. He looks like Oprah Winfrey there. Paul Starr. Well, we'll go into about all the demons and stuff that they all had. Okay, at this particular photo session that they're doing here, you have the one that's all the red and all four faces are together in it and the smoke's coming up around them?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'll tell you a story about that.
Yeah,
Because this is where the blood came from.
Skip just a few pages just to show you the one we're talking about. This one?
Yeah, exactly.
That one Paul's got the star on it. These are the red
Right.
shoes, but now it's got the star.
Were those done the same day?
Yes, they were.
Same day?
Yes. Well, no, they were done. It was the same photographer. It was the same thing. It was the same session.
Okay.
But this is after. Hey, it looks stupid. It's ugly. Change it.
Okay, let's go back there. First session. Every time I hit those 2 pages, Gene Simmons and Lydia Chris and Paul Stanley asked me, where did I get those? Especially this pictures. Really strikes Gene's all the time. The last time I got that on video. In a room in 88 when, hold on, it was in 91 when they did the after the Gold Rush concert. I was in a hotel room with them, Gene and Paul looking at those books. And Gene is getting a little bit aggravated there. He's kind of a little pissed because he sees some pictures that he's convinced that I got from Lydia Chris. And he gets a little mad.
He hates Lydia.
Oh, he hates her. And the picture that I'm talking about a little further, you will know why. But they're pretty intense. But anyway, Paul.
Okay, like in this whole session, I'm not joking, but I would be doing this thing, because I'd be like this. I'd go, okay, Paul. He would imitate me. Okay. Gene, I would do just the opposite. Yeah. But they were fabulous because they could do it instantly and with no apology. Glasses. I left them over there. Okay, the blood. This is the first place that the blood appears.
Ready?
Yes. I'm down getting makeup because the makeup the one we used for stage, which was Black Diamond by Maybelline.
Okay.
Get the word Black Diamond?
Percent.
Okay. Had nothing to do with the girl. Out on the street, because all the other makeup used to run. Hidden the eyes, so forth. Found Black Diamond. It was waterproof. It was sweatproof. It stayed on like a tattoo. So you got NLC balloons, just going to be going, thinks they got this other friend, but Black Diamond. About makeup, not about a chick. But I was down there at Stein's. I see these big bottles of red stuff. I mean, what is that? This is steak blood. I said, well, that doesn't look like blood. No, the real red stuff is for live on stage. The iodine brown stuff is for TV and film. Mm. So I buy a bottle of this stuff. And I go to G. I come up and we're in the dressing room getting ready to do this shoot. I go, Gene, check this out. Close your eyes. Close his eyes. Look at my. I go, okay, open your eyes. And I push the blood out. And Gene goes, because he imitates Curly all the time. And flipped out, and that's how the blood, that's how the blood first started. And it was first shot in here, and that's probably the first shot of blood.
You even have the imitation of Curly.
Huh? It's on, he's always, all that Popeye.
Really?
Yeah, he could talk like Popeye and imitate Curly all the time. Otherwise, he was known as Mr. Marvado. This is when, I mean, I'm not joking, this is when the guys, this is the poster picture I was just talking about. I'm out in front of them. Do it, come on, Paul, lean in there, give it to me, girlfriend. Jane, you're at the, and this is perfectly it. Uh-huh. And that was a girl that did this. I can't remember her name, like Rosenstein or something like that. She was the first photographer who did that. The thing with Jean's hair, by the way, up on top, and the reason all their hair is all black, isn't me. I made them all dye their hair black.
Really?
He went out on stage. Well, on stage, he was in a club. He was stupid. He ran out, but he used to pull his hair up like this so he could do makeup. And then he'd take it down. We were so late that he ran on the stage with the stick on top of his head. And that's how this thing on top of his head started. Yeah.
This is the first ad of the first album. This is the only one I saw. I never saw anything. This comes from the old Cream, and I never saw it anywhere else. This is the top one to get. Top one to get.
Right. I was the one that personally was his hairdresser for years. I'm the only one that could tease his hair and get it up there and get it to stay.
76 was probably the most incredible one for hiding the hair all over.
And these first costumes, by the way, were huge mistakes. They were all leather. All real leather. And I get out there with the stage lights, playing them, and they turn into pure hell.
The sweat. Crazy. We're going to get to the very interesting stuff very soon now.
Oh, you've already got some very interesting stuff. I mean, it's like, I'm related because, I was right there. I remember when I'm saying, come on, girl. That's how I talked to him. And he would just turn. He'd just turn right into it. Yeah.
Great. All right, you ready now? Let's get to the good stuff.
In the beginning, that's how the makeup was. It was just white, without any of the eye stuff. Okay?
Is that how they were when you first saw them? Or did they already have some of the...
No, they were doing girl makeup.
Oh, really?
Yes. The white face with nothing else was so... It left people unnerved. Because there was nothing human to connect to. And it wasn't a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a silly thing. It was an uneasy thing. And, if you're going to do death rock, you should be easy with death rock, not uncertain with death rock. If you're going to do Satanism, you should be positive Satanism, not is it me that's getting sacrificed? It left people uneasy. Go ahead. Lydia, I'll tell you, here's the first Kiss t-shirt right there, and I have that very one right there at home. I do. That is the first Kiss t-shirt right there. You see it?
Yeah.
The very first one, Lydia made them.
Yeah, she said that because we spoke with her, and she said that she was making most of the Peter's costumes.
Lydia, Peter and Lydia both gave me that one there.
It's funny that he describes how they changed the makeup for the red room session, or what they call it. Because there's at least 3 different sets of makeup, at least on Peter.
Yeah, there's 2 for sure for Paul.
Yeah.
But he was explaining that it was made the same day. It was the same kind of 2 different sessions at the same place.
Yeah.
Do you know where it was?
Sure, Delaney's.
Okay.
We rented the Fillmore. This was the home of major rock concerts. Then it got closed down, and we rented it to do this live performance thing. It was like our first live show, and we brought people to come and see it. You know, like friends and so forth.
Yeah,
and,
like
it was like a dress rehearsal of, my God, this is what we're doing. We're actually doing this, guys. That was before we went on tour. This is the first step.
Wow. I got a question on those.
Sure.
You know anything about this out? Is that like the first outdoor concert or?
Oh, damn, there were a couple of horrible things like that.
Oh, that was the Kite Festival.
Is that you there? No, that looks like Peter. It can't be Peter. Peter'd be up there playing. Uh-huh. Yeah. Damn, that could be me. Who knows? No, I think that's the other band. Yeah. This was done at. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I really don't.
Those are the
I
only
really don't.
pictures I
I'm
got.
sitting here and I don't remember.
Okay, that's the end. He did the fire. That's all.
Yep.
That's a regular one for me. A few more. This is by Circus. Circus have very good pictures.
Yes, they do. Okay, this move here, this piece here was one of the first. But this was the choreography that really. There were 2 people. This one here did something to the audience because Ace would be solo. Gene would come up and stick his leg into his crotch, so they were crotch to crotch. Paul would jump in backwards, and then they would fuck. In the climax of his solo, and the people in the audience would go, because it was the first time they ever saw men get that close and touch each other orgiastically. Yeah. You're talking about Leave It to Beaver days, just part of this, you know?
Talking about shocking people.
Yeah.
Those are regular press.
Then Ace used to get down here and he used to bend all the way back on the floor. All the way back. And they were doing the move. That was hot. It was fucking hot. There's the pose. There's the pose. And like right in there and grinding on his crust like they were screwing.
Yeah. Next question.
This here was my Jeep. Yeah, that's my Jeep. Mine. I was the first one. Wait, you understand? That was the first renegade. That is it. That was the thing that they came out with on new line. And I went, I want it. Purple. And this was a suit that my friend from Xenon's made. I know who has that now. You know?
Do you know something about those pictures? I mean, what?
Yeah, this was in my driveway. It was for a thing called...
Well, I'm laughing because, like I say, I used to read trades, and everybody went to these exotic locales to get their shots. In my driveway.
This was in my driveway. It was probably
exotic.
late afternoon. Ace had to have. It was Stars with Cars for Circus Magazine. They did a thing with Stars with Cars. There's another one with Peter with like an MG, an old green MG.
Okay.
And this was Ace took it with my Jeep, the first Renegade.
I love it.
We've done 4-wheel, that's why everything's filthy dirty. And I mean, like, you'd fly down. I mean, imagine back in 1977, a purple Jeep.
the next
You know, well, a lavender Jeep. You know, this was like unheard of. You know, and plus here we are with, you know, dyed black hair. I mean, it was cute. This is the guitar I stole from Lou Reed. That's my guitar. He's at my house. This is a piece of art from inside my house that used to have, I have a big red ball that would sit on top of it. And then I would put the ball. This is my horns. This is all at my house. This is standing in the back of my Jeep. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This guitar here, where I live, here's my house. One house over up on the hill was a guy named Steve Katz. Steve Katz was the guitar player in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And he was producing Lou Reed. And it's like 3:30 in the morning. I have just passed out. And the phone rings. Oh, what? It's Lou Reed. Sean, you've got to come over here. We need help. We're having a bad time. You just do it. And what they're trying to do is name their album. Think of a name for the album. They finished the album. They need a name for the album. I get up. I'm pissed off. I grab my leather jacket. I grab my sunglasses. I go up to the house. I walk into Steve Katz's house. I throw the leather jacket at Lou Reed. I go, wear that. Where are these? That's the sunglasses. Dye your hair blonde and call it Sally Can't Dance. And I left. And that's what they did. He dyed his hair police blonde. He wore my sunglasses. Put my jacket on. They called it Sally Can't Dance album. And as I walked out, I saw his guitar, so I stole it. And they were so stoned, they forgot. They didn't know what the hell happened, so I kept it. And I sold Ace for $2,000. Those are my horns. I'm down in the woods. That's the wood. This is out behind. There's my wood pile. You know, I live down in the...
This picture right there, did they buy it from you there? Or
No, that's my guitar.
Okay.
Anyway,
Cool.
we get the idea.
It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's a privilege to hear it.
Yeah.
But you see how he is, right? It's very spontaneous. He's not gonna select his word as far as like, okay, I got to be nice about it. He gives it to you like he thinks. And it comes like that. So it's like, I mean, the entire tape is like this. The DVD is even more dramatic than that. So when you go, I mean, it's too bad today we had to read things instead of making you listen to the stuff because we just can't do it. But yeah, that's what it is. So you get a combination of both. We shared some of the transcript that we had, some of the tape, and we have much more, but we have so little time.
But maybe we can do more later. We'll have to see. But it's been nice talking about Sean for a little over 2 hours anyway.
Yeah.
Ready?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Time goes too quick.
Yeah. But thank you once more. It was great once and great twice.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
So anytime. Love talking about Kiss anyway.
Okay. But that's all for this time then. So we'll go out in the same way.
Okay.
Keep on
Kissing!
kissing!
Yeah.